Hi, I'm Dr. Chris Burrett. Welcome to the ACO's A Different Kind of Psychiatry case presentation webinar. We're glad to have you. Today's presentation is entitled Using Play in the Therapy of an Angry Little Girl, presented by Dr. Salvatore Iacobello. Welcome, Dr. Iacobello.
Thank you, Dr. Barrett.
Dr. Iacobello is a board-certified psychiatrist and a clinical associate of the ACO. He's in private practice in Fairfield, Connecticut, and he's an assistant editor of the Journal of Ergonomy. Dr. Iacobello, I'm really happy to have you here. I want to let the audience know that they can type in questions into the Q&A section at any time during the presentation, and we'll get to them at the end. Dr. Iacobello, how did you decide to present Kayla's story today?
Well, I decided because I think it's an interesting case or treatment of a child with play in the setting of organ therapy. Also is a good example of what are the interactions in a family between parents, siblings, and the child who is having, they identified the problem. And last, because of the good response that Kayla had to treatment.
So can you tell us, who is Kayla and how did she come to you for treatment? What was the problem?
Well, Kayla is a little girl. She now, when she came to see me, she was 5.5 years old. And this was during the COVID pandemic. Now she's a couple of years older. And she came to me because the parents found me referred by the insurance. One of the insurances with whom I work, the parents wanted Kayla to see a child therapist because they felt that the behavior they were seeing were getting out of control. They were feeling overwhelmed too, and they didn't know what to do.
What were the behaviors, Dr. Iacobello? What were the behaviors that were concerning them?
Well, the behaviors were at the beginning were increased defiance and stubbornness. Kayla wouldn't listen to her parents, and then she would escalate to the point of having full temper tantrums, crying, throwing herself on the floor, and eventually she had gotten it to the point of threatening to kill herself.
Oh, wow.
Say, I'm going to kill myself with a butter knife. At another time, she had threatened to run away. So the parents were concerned that the mother also had some anxiety about her daughter because she felt that her daughter was going to be like her own mother. And the mother had a difficult relationship with her own mother, who apparently had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So there was a lot of anxiety in the family. And the mother wanted to get professional help.
I see. So can you tell us about the first appointment? Was that with Kayla's parents? Was that with Kayla? How did it start?
Well, first I met with the parents. And the first time I met with the mother, and I obtained the full history of Kayla's behavioral problems, as well as I got the developmental history.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I met Kayla, and then I met the father also by himself. The parents had a difficult work schedule. The mother was working from home due to the pandemic. The father will not be at home that much because he worked with the transportation department. So I had to work around that. So the history, Kayla's history was significant for having been always a difficult child. Actually, she had been difficult, according to mother, since when she was in her womb.
Really?
Because that's what she would say. She would get very restless in the last months of the pregnancy, and we'd be kicking at the mother to the point that the mother had to hold her belly.
Wow.
So these and other signs, they told me that I had a child who was high energy, who would be prone to protest when something was wrong, and that I felt that I was going to see a child with a high energy level.
Yeah.
So then when after she was born, she also was difficult, especially with sleep. In fact, Kayla, one of the other things was that she didn't want to sleep by herself. She wanted to sleep with her parents. She also had been prone to nightmares. And eventually they found a kind of solution for where Kayla would be sleeping in the cot next to the parents' bed.
So she would sleep in a cot next to their bed.
Yeah,
That was
they
their
would
temporary.
try to have her to sleep in her room at first, but then during the night she would get up. She would want to be with the parents, and they come to that solution. She also had been having difficult problems with being told no. She would cry, she would protest. At times, she could become aggressive, like hitting her mother or her father with her head. But because she was small,
She was headbutting?
Yes, she was a headbutting in a couple of occasions.
Wow.
The mother or the father. So, but eventually at this point, with the pandemic, her behaviors have become more difficult. Now, the other part of the story was she was doing very well at school. She didn't have behavioral problems at school. So she liked her teachers. She was getting along well with her peers. She also would go to daycare before the pandemic, and she was doing well at the daycare.
Dr. Iacobello, what was your initial impression when you heard that she was having all this trouble at home, but doing very well in school?
Well, I felt that there was something at home that was bothering Kayla. I felt that in some way, her emotion needs were not being met. Her need for contact was not being satisfied. In fact, there were also some statements she had been making, like, I hate my life, nobody loves me, or telling her mother, you hate me, you don't love me. So what I was seeing, just based on the history, I felt that I had a child with a high energy level, who was with a strong will, who was going to fight and was going to do whatever she needed to be listened.
Yeah. So can you tell us about the first appointment with Kayla? What was that like when you first met her?
Well, yeah, certainly. She came in brought by her mother, and she was nicely dressed in pink, in some way looking a little bit like a ballerina. And she was a little shy at the beginning, but then she soon warmed up, and she had a stuffed animal with her that later she introduced to me. And at first she was shy, but then she came easily into the consultation room with me, and she sat on the couch, although let's say she was leaning on the couch more than sitting. So, and we started to talk. So she soon warmed up, but I saw that she really didn't know what to make with herself by being there. So with children, usually what I do is I introduce myself, or I may ask them if they know who I am or why they are coming. So she knew why she was coming. She said, well, that's because of my bad behavior. But besides that, she didn't say that much. So at that point, I felt that I just needed to interact with her and engage her in play. And indeed, she has started to look around the office and seeing toys. And she had this stuffed animal that was a unicorn, small.
Is this her unicorn or one that was in your office?
No, that was her unicorn. She
brought it.
So I say, well, who is that? Or she says, oh, that's Uni. She said, he's not a stuffed animal, he is real. Her name is Uni. Uni was her sister. So we started to interact and play around that. And then she went to look for the other toys. She wanted I have some board games too. So I think the first time she showed interest for the board games. And I went along playing with her. After that, she got bored of that. And I introduced the puppets. And I was starting to interact with her using the puppets. And that's, I think, she was getting excited. In some ways, she liked interacting with me. And it looked like soon she started to show some aggression. It didn't take that much before the puppets started to fight. Actually, I will hold one puppet. She will hold the other one, and she started to hit my puppet with her own. So what I do in this situation usually is I start to comment on what's going on and trying to ask for explanations and see what comes out.
So she's the director and the actor and the actors, and you're the narrator of the story as it goes?
Yeah, that's how it went. She was, throughout all the treatment, she was the one who was in charge. And I could just go along with what she wanted to do. So, and if she didn't like something, she would let me know. Now, eventually, when she understood what it was about, she would come and she would say, well, let's pretend this, let's pretend that. So we would play according to what she wanted to pretend.
Dr. Iacobello, you're talking about subsequent sessions that was established that you guys were going to play together.
Right. It was established that we were going to play together, and that's what was the work with her.
So Dr. Iacobello, was she aggressive outside of using the puppets? Was she directly aggressive with you or with your office?
With the time, she showed also some aggression toward me, I have some swimming pool noodles in the office, and eventually, but this more during the second part of the therapy, she wanted to fight with them. We'll have a sword fight, but also there were occasions when she actually was punching me or wanting to hit me.
How did you handle that?
Well, I would just let her do it and encourage the expression of that aggression. And at the same time, when I had the opportunity, we try to make sense of what was happening.
Hmm.
So I got to know her fairly well through the game and the play. It became clear that she didn't like to think about her behavior at home.
Hmm.
That was something that she wouldn't want to go there. And I didn't do anything about that. She wanted to, in some way, to maintain the play relationship the way it was.
Dr. Iacobello, what you said strikes me because I've been in the circumstance where there might be this expectation, like if you explain to the child, that behavior is unacceptable at home, that, you're going to get through to them as the party outside the family. And in my experience is it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that's how it is. With children, it doesn't work to talk with them about what may happen at home and what their behavior is or what they should do.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that in her case, there were three components to the therapy, to the work with her. One was to make contact with her and pay attention to her and listen to her, accepting her for who she was.
Mm-hmm.
The other point was to allow her the expression of this aggression that was coming. And number three was to help her to improve a self-perception and to get in touch with what she was doing.
How did you do that?
Well, one way was by being present with her and interacting with her and listening to her, so she could have the sense that I was there for her. Because at home, I felt that she was not getting much attention, especially during the pandemic. The mother was working during the day. The father was not at home. The brother, who was like 6 years older than her, was not really that much available to her. And that was another part of the treatment, the siblings rivalry.
Rivalry between her and her brother?
Right. Siblings rivalry and the competition for who was going to have the attention of the parents.
Ah.
So that was an important thing. So now she had me here all for her, and she could do whatever she wanted.
So how did you work with her parents in addressing these aspects beyond just working with her directly?
Well, with the parents, I met with them several times, either individually with the parents when they could come, and also by video sessions to have both of them together.
Mm-hmm.
So from the beginning, what I saw was that there was a pattern where I felt that the father was a little bit the disciplinarian, the one who was stricter and will enforce the rules. The mother, on the other side, was the main person who was taking care of Kayla, and she would take the brand of the oppositionality or the defiance At the same time, we tried to engage her. But one of the things the mother did many times was to just play around with her. And I can say more about that later. But I felt that she needed more attention from the father,
Mm.
who was not that much available to her. On the other side, the father would spend more time with the son, who was involved in sports. So I started to point that out to them, and I think that the father was pretty receptive to this. So it led to the father being more flexible, not being as much the strong voice, enforcing the rules, sending her to a room, but just trying to engage her. And I think that resulted in great improvement, just that alone.
So, Dr. Iacobello, if I'm hearing you correctly, he was just physically less present. He might be away at work or with the brother. And then the times that he was there, he was falling into that disciplinarian role. So it wasn't quality interaction with his daughters.
Right, or it wasn't. And because there were many opportunities for Kayla to get unhappy or to protest about something, yeah, because she couldn't get something or because her brother did something. So she would get a lot of that.
Mm.
So I think that intervention was very important. But also the aggression started to come out during the sessions, because most of the time the sessions will end up with some level of aggression. Either she will start to have, besides the puppets, I also have small dolls or small characters. So, and she will make them fight, or then she will throw them away, she will punish them. She also will become aggressive toward Uni. And on few occasions, she threw Uni under the couch. And I'll be wondering, what was that about?
Yeah.
What Uni had done. I will not get much of a follow-up in my questions, but I think I was trying to create that kind of atmosphere of consideration.
Yes. And Dr. Iacobello, you mentioned how helpful it was with father to help him to be more present. What work did you have to do with mother?
We mother, I think I mostly had to educate her to help her understand what Kayla was going through and how she felt that she was not getting enough attention from the parents. So, and also I had to reduce mother anxiety, because she felt that there was something deeply wrong with her daughter. So in some way I had to help her to understand that the reactions in some way were understandable. In the past, before the mother came to see me, she had been trying to do things like, if Kayla will have a temper tantrum, the mother actually pretend also to have a temper tantrum. And she had been going so far as to throw herself on the floor and have a temper tantrum herself. So that's, we take the charge in some way off from Kayla, who then we say, oh, that's not right, that's not fair. You cannot have temper tantrums. I'm the one who has to have temper tantrums.
So what effect did that have on Kayla when mother did that?
Well, we diffuse the temper tantrum. So it worked for the time being, but then it started not to work any longer. Another time when Kayla had threatened to run away, the mother would say, okay, well, how you are going to do it? Let's see how you are going to do it. And then, of course, we come to nothing. But although this had worked, the now was not working any longer. So I started to work with mother to help her to understand that indeed she had to accept what Kayla was feeling, and just empathizing with her about the feeling, if she was angry or if she was sad, instead of just trying to avoid whatever feelings that Kayla was having.
Dr. Iacobello, was your sense that the mother had an intuition about how to handle Kayla, or that she was just doing that technique because it seemed to work? You know, because at any one time, one intervention may be what the child needs. What's your sense of what was going on?
I think the mother may have used the technique more in a mechanical way. I don't know if maybe she had read things or she has seen something on the internet, so she will use that. But I think it worked the first few times, but then it stopped working.
I see.
So that's will leave Kayla feeling like she really was not being understood or being taken seriously.
Yes, yes.
So
Go ahead.
So I was saying that different, teams came out during the play, and there was aggression. There was also, eventually she started to bring up teams connected to boys and girls, and sleeping together. Then she had the two figurines kissing each other, but then she says, "Oh, but that's not something you're supposed to do." And she threw them away. So I was seeing a lot of ambivalence there. And also I saw that there was a pattern in her play. There was, she would play something and then she would stop and we want to do something else. So I interpreted that as some level of anxiety that will emerge, and therefore she had to change.
Yeah, I was curious. You mentioned that she was having nightmares, would have trouble sleeping on her own. Did her fear and anxiety come out in the play or interactions with you?
No, not directly. The fear, because I think the main resistances I was seeing were, avoidance and denial. And they should make that very clear, especially at the end. I don't want to talk about that. That's it. There was nothing I could do about it.
So she wouldn't just ignore you. She would say, "I'm not talking about that."
I'm not talking about that. But that was more toward the end. And I think I see that as a progress, because now she was able to say it.
Yes.
So the play also changed in nature. It became more organized. So now she will want to play different parts. We will have competition. It would be competition, drawing competitions, or it would be competitions about building something, or she would be the teacher, and she would tell her what to do. So we did a lot of coloring and cutting papers, gluing things. So I saw that as a progress where the aggression was starting to become more organized and was not coming out directly as a disorganized behavior.
And was there competition at home?
Well, the competition at home eventually became a competition with the mother for father's attention. And then it became also competition with the brother. And she had very strong feelings about this. And she would play eventually once. First, the father was giving her more attention, more time. So then she felt her father was on her side. So now she became smart to manipulate the situation using the father's support against the mother when she wanted to get whatever she wanted. So then I had to work with the mother to look to see how she could manage this situation. On the other side, the mother also felt eventually toward the end, the mother said, "Oh, it looks like we both are playing our girl part. We are competing for the father attention."
Yes.
So, but at that point, she was already doing much better. There had not been any of those episodes of temper tantrum or threats. Although I think in the background, there was for Kayla this hostility in some way, these conflicts, especially with the brother. And, at that point, however, we were toward the end of the therapy, but I think it was good for her to be able to put in words how she felt about her brother.
Yes. And it's interesting because during this therapy progress, she's growing and developing quite rapidly, at that age.
Yeah. And also this is the age during which all these relationship problems between the parents and the siblings happen, and they contribute certainly to the formation of character.
Yeah.
So I think I always, one of the last times I saw her, at that point I felt that I needed to bring up what was going on with her as far as her behavior is concerned. But one of her last statements was, "Daddy loves me." She said that Daddy loves me and Mom more than Tyler. Tyler being the brother.
Yeah.
So I said, "What about Tyler?" She said, "I hate him. Nobody cares about Tyler. He's a retard." Then she says, "Never mind about it. Let's not talk about it." So that's how she, in some way, she closed the argument. But there are a lot of feelings there.
She had strong feelings and then she shut it off right after that.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about it. So then we went on playing whatever.
Yeah. Dr. Iacobello, I wonder if you could underscore how a medical ergonomist does play therapy different than maybe another therapist who does play therapy.
I think the difference is that my focus is in allowing the expression of these feelings and these impulses through play, and also actually engage the child in expressing the aggression and the anger directly by, asking to show me the anger, to show me what she was feeling. And this also, I should say, she was very good at fencing me off. It was very difficult to have her just to sit and look at me. Or at the beginning, I had asked her to see if she could lay down on the couch and do some breathing. But no, she was clear. I'm not going to do any of that. Oh, with that thing, no. So she was good with that. But then I have the opportunity, when I see emotions to come up, to encourage the expression. So that's one side. And I remember there was one occasion she brought up the issue of any evil eyes. So we engaged on that. I asked her, "Well, can you show me these evil eyes? Let's do them." And then I imitated them.
Is that like an angry face, or what do you mean exactly?
The eyes, evil eyes. So she showed us some anger in her eyes.
Uh-huh.
So that's one part, encouraging expression. The other part is to try to improve the perception that the child has of herself and what she's expressing.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that defenses also is the other part. And we are helped because we also can look at the body language and what the body language tells us about resistances and defenses. Another play that came up was she became the queen. Actually, she was the princess, and the king and the queen were dead. I was the prince who had to rescue her, and now she's laying on the couch and she tells me what to do. So this was very directive.
Yes.
Now she would know what she wanted to play. So my part was just to play along with it,
Uh-huh.
and help her to try to understand it.
Yes. Very good. And so during the therapy, while you're allowing her to express herself through play or directly through you, her behavior was improving at home. Is that right?
Yeah, I think already 6 months within the therapy, those behaviors had disappeared. There was one episode when at the beginning, probably the first month or first few months from the start of the therapy, when she had gotten in trouble at home because she went in the morning, she went to yell at the geese, because it looks like at night they would keep geese in the kitchen because they had the family geese. They couldn't keep them outside because of the foxes and other animals, so they would bring them in. But in the morning, they would start to make noise. So Kayla was very unhappy about that. So she went downstairs, she started to yell at them and scare them off. So there was a big mess. So that then led to a big problem, and Kayla crying and being very upset. And then later on, there was an episode with the brother about chips. The brother bought some chips. She didn't want to have some of them. She wanted
like potato chips?
Yeah, potato chips.
Uh-huh.
So I ended up in a big argument. I think they were out. She wanted her own bag of potato chips. So there was a big temper tantrums that created a lot of problems.
Did
So
the brother have
after
any of his
that,
own? Oh, go ahead.
After that, there was manageable problems or oppositionality. Depends, we say, well, she's doing much better, but Kayla will be always Kayla. With this, they were referring to her personality. She was very strong. She wanted what she wanted, and the parents were learning how to work with her.
Dr. Iacobello, you're highlighting her nature, that when she was in the womb with mother, that's a part of her. And as we often say in these webinars, and figuring out how to manage, who she is, her nature, rather than expecting it to change or modify it in some way. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, if we want to talk in those terms, I think that's what I was seeing. I was seeing a child who was emotionally alive, very intense, with a strong will. And, when you have a child like that, you are going to need to find a way to work around that rather than trying to squash that nature. I think she had a strong need for contact, and for being understood, and probably in view of her history, it looked like there was something that had gone wrong or was not working right. And she was the kind of girl who will not accept that and will protest. And that's how we create all the problems.
Yeah, it's no surprise that during the pandemic, someone like her with such a high energy and a need for emotional connection would be struggling when the whole family, is separated and struggling on their own.
Right. If she didn't have any longer the outlet, she was having at school or at the daycare.
Hmm.
So she felt in some way like she now was closed in.
Yes. So, Dr. Iacobello, with her brother, did he have his own difficulties that contributed, or was it just dealing with Kayla's nature and her troubles, or?
Well, once what looks like it happened, once Kayla was getting more attention from the father,
Mhm.
the brother started to protest about that and be unhappy about it. And now the brother actually will show some hostility toward Kayla, calling her different kind of names. In fact, what I read before, let's say her last statement, in part that's reflected what the brother would tell her when he was angry. Because the brother apparently was very bright. He was doing well at school while Kayla was struggling, there was any problem. So there have been many times when the brother had put her down.
I see.
So that's created this other level of hostility. But when the brother saw that Kayla was getting more attention, he started to become more unhappy and protest. And and then eventually there was an occasion where the brother had some problems at school. He actually wanted to run away too. And he had gone so far as packing his things and trying to leave. So at that point, the mother got really overwhelmed. She ended up having a panic attack because she didn't know what to do. And then that's led to a consultation about the brother with me, and we had a one-time consultation. However, I felt that I could not work with the brother because the sibling rivalry was very intense. For me to start to see the brother would have had a very strong negative effect on Kayla.
I see.
Who in some ways she felt like she owed me. She owned me. And
Yeah.
I was a playing sessions guy.
Yeah.
So I had to suggest to the parents that they would look for another therapist for the brother.
Yeah. Dr. Iacobello, I'm thinking of just how this highlights how difficult it can be to be a parent, when you're trying to manage, for instance, Kayla's nature and the difficulties that come up, and then how that changes the dynamic for your other child. And then, by the way, that affects the relationship between the mother and the father.
Yes, yeah, it's I think that's one of the main points, I think, of the working with this child. And I think that's made me decide to present there, because there is the complexity of working with the family system and not just with the child.
Absolutely. That's how I see it too.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Iacobello, how is Kayla doing now? What's your understanding of how she is?
Well, last time I saw her was in June of this year. At that time, she was doing well, and Of course, she was getting ready for the summer. There was no school. There wasn't going to be any school. So this is a time when children tend to do much better. So although I felt that there were deeper issues, I could have been working with Kayla, but the parents felt satisfied with the results they had gotten. Once the pressure was decreased, they discontinued the treatment. And I think since then, there's been no other follow-up or contact.
So she's doing better, and it sounds like that was where the parents were, where Kayla was. She said, "This is what's going on, but let's not talk about that. I'm doing better." It almost sounds like.
Yeah, right. That's I think what
Yeah.
was happening there. Yeah.
And I'd like to imagine that you establish this great relationship that when she runs into trouble, she can come back to the play doctor.
Yeah, I think that can happen. I have seen this happening before.
Yeah.
In the past, that after so many years, a patient comes back. So it can happen. I wouldn't be surprised.
Dr. Iacobello, before we go to the questions from the audience, anything else about Kayla's story and her therapy with you'd like to mention?
Well, I would like to mention for the audience that children behavior has a meaning. There are emotions behind their behavior and their behavioral problems. So one has to focus on what is the function of a behavior at a certain point in the context of a family, rather than just seeing the dysfunctional behavior as a general symptom that needs to be suppressed or treated with medications. So I think children can respond well to therapy just by making contact and allowing expression of those impulses that are suppressed at home or at school.
Dr. Iacobello, well said. I think that's wonderful to highlight, because sometimes there's this idea of, bad behavior. What do you do to stop it, rather than what's actually going on here? How do we get to the bottom of it? And what natural expression is looking for connection? So I appreciate you highlighting that.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
So let me see what questions we have from the audience. Kind of along that note, there's the question of, if she's misbehaving, saying no to her to stop a behavior. Did that come up in terms of, do they need to say no or have firmer boundaries with her? Or I think the audience member just wants to hear, to understand that dynamic in terms of what the parents did or needed to do.
Well, the parents, there were situations when they needed to be firm and they needed to say no, but also I helped the parents to accept the fact that she was going to have a temper tantrum, and their function would be not to try to calm her down and do other things, but just be there, let the temper tantrum run its course, and then just see what would happen. And eventually what was happening is that either she would go to her room and she would calm down, or she would calm down anyway, and then she would come out and then she would be a regular happy self. So I also, from that point of view, I had to help the parents to be able to tolerate that emotional expression.
Dr. Iacobello, that makes me think of when we're working with an adult, how we might say something along the lines of, it's not your feelings that get you into trouble, but it's what you do to get away from your feelings or block your feelings. And in this case, it wasn't Kayla's character or her armor, but it was her parents interfering with the course of the emotional expression and helping them to tolerate those strong feelings.
Yes, but I think also, especially the mother, the mother in some way had a higher level of anxiety, and she would panic in seeing those behaviors, while in the second part of the therapy, they started to see these behaviors as part of Kayla being a child who was growing and developing and learning how to deal with frustration and different emotions. And they also could see the dynamics of what was going on in the family, the competition, the jealousy, the part that she was playing was like there was a drama that was being played there.
Yes. So let's see what other questions there are. How would you help the mother help the situation in the dynamic for attention between Kayla and father and her? So if mother's feeling like the dynamic between Kayla and father, what did you have to help her with in that situation?
Well, in that situation, I was telling the mother to just don't become part of the drama too, or the game that that Kayla was playing. So just to look at it and see it happening, because in some way, I think the mother may have been somewhat jealous because Kayla was praising the father for many things, how good he was, how good he was at cooking and the other things. She would do it purposefully. So I was asking the mother not to get caught on that and just let it happen and not to react.
Just stand that feeling that she had when there was that
Yeah.
competition between her and her daughter.
Yeah.
My man. Now this is my man.
Right. It was like that. Yeah, in some way.
Yeah. There's a question. What if letting the temper tantrum run its course, as you said, leads to the child upping the ante by breaking furniture, being more destructive? Is there any concern about that?
Well, here it was not happening with Kayla because, first of all, she was very young still, 5.5. In that case, I think if it didn't happen with Kayla, but if it would happen, the child may need to be restrained in a gentle way and be talked to and help the child to regain control. But this didn't happen in this case. But I understand that it can happen.
I think it's an example what you're saying of what worked for her may not work for someone else. It may be, even though the behaviors may look similar, how you address it or how you handle it may be different.
Yeah, right. And another case I treated because the aggression was of such a level and was manifesting at school too, or in other social setting, I actually had to use medications to help the child through that. So I think each case is different.
Yes,
That's
I agree.
could be for another case presentation. But it's interesting. I have had the opportunity to treat several children around this age, so I can see a lot of the dynamics and the differences.
Yes. There's a question, how did the behavior develop in the first place?
Kayla been always difficult since when she was small. And the temper tantrums had been present. She would cry inconsolably. But up to the time of the pandemic, they have been manageable for the parents. And they have not been such of a problem. And I think because Kayla was having the outlet of school and daycare and the interaction with peers, those behaviors were not showing so intensely. But with the pandemic, that's when the problem started.
Oh, Dr. Iacobello, I realized we didn't maybe clarify. She wasn't in school because of the pandemic because they didn't have any kind of virtual
Yeah, right.
option for her in
She was
kindergarten.
kindergarten.
Yeah,
Our little kids practically be stuck at home
yeah,
doing nothing. And because the mother had to work from home, there was practically she was alone.
yeah. So there's a question from the audience, just again, to highlight how you see the difference in play therapy between someone who's trained in medical orgone therapy and someone who's not. Maybe again, you could just clarify.
I think somebody who is not trained in medical organ therapy, we focus more on interpretation and trying to look at the meaning of what the child does, while for us as a medical ergonomist, the focus is more on the expression of emotions and just helping the child to release the energy. I think our focus is in the interaction with the therapist and what happens in the moment. And I think that can be very therapeutic, although at times may be undervalued, while we don't focus much on understanding or explanations or so much in talking about these functions. That's why the difference is in the understanding of play and how it is used.
And that's what my training was in play therapy. It was very cerebral and intellectual, and not that that's a problem, and it can help you understand having that perspective, but it had its limitations in what you do and what your goal is in actually working with a child in play therapy. I agree.
Yes, I think that's how I see it. I think that the therapy happens in the interaction, and just by playing and providing an environment where anything can be expressed and there are not going to be consequences, and also you have somebody who listens to you and makes contact, I think is very therapeutic.
Yes. One last question, and this is a general question, so maybe if it came up in Kayla's situation, you can answer it through this case. How do you deal with children when they want something that could be unreasonable, but they persist? They persist, but it's just not something for the child. It's unreasonable.
Again, I don't think that question can be answered in abstract, because it has to do with the child, the
Right.
situation, the family. But I think sometimes you may need to be firm and say, no, that's not possible. And just if the child is going to cry or having the temper tantrum, just let it happen and recognize the feeling of the child, but also be able to be fair.
I agree. Dr. Iacobello, before we stop, anything you'd like to leave the audience with?
Well, I think it's very important for children who are having problems to get help at a young age, and therapy can help them very much. And understanding a child and working with a child, I think can make a difference in the future life of the child. And I think people want to think about therapy as a resource that can be very helpful, and I consider medications only as an extreme solution when nothing else has been working.
Dr. Iacobello, this has been a wonderful presentation. I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Barrett.
And to the audience, thank you for your time, and a special thank you to the donors of the ACO who make our work possible. Any feedback you have about our webinars is greatly appreciated. We'll email you a survey, and anything that you like and enjoy about it or anything that can be improved, please let us know. I hope you'll join us for our next webinar, which will be on Saturday, December 10th at 4 p.m. A Little Dragon and Her Therapist, Longing for Contact. It will be presented by Dr. D. Apple and hosted by Dr. Peter Christ. In the meantime, you can check out the Journal of Orgonomy at our website, orgonomy.org, and you can listen to our podcast, the A Different Kind of Psychiatry podcast. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.